So as you can probably tell from my channel and watching some of my videos by now, that I think it's really important for people to have goals in life. I think it's really important for people to have something to orient themselves towards, something that they can aim for. And not only that, but I think it's even better if not only that you have a goal, but you have a goal that you can track your progress toward as you're moving forward, moving toward that goal. And what I mean by that is you can track it in some way to, while you're moving toward that goal, you can see your progress, you can see your results in real time. You can see the results in your life on a daily basis. You know, you're developing these habits that will help you towards success, and you can see them laying themselves out in real time in your day-to-day life. And I think that really helps motivate people to continue striving toward their goals. But the tricky thing about goals, and it's something that's pretty hard for me, especially the person I am, is that if we're not reaching our goals on a daily or consistent basis, for whatever reason, it can really get hard. I'm the kind of person that sometimes I think I'm a little too hard on myself. Sometimes I'm a little too critical, and I think we all have. I think I've talked about that in a video before. We have that internal critic somewhere, like maybe in the back of our head somewhere, that's judging us all the time and putting us under a really harsh light. So when I notice sometimes that I'm not reaching my goals as fast as I want to, or for whatever reason, and it really bums me out. But there's a better way to go about doing this, and I've learned it the hard way. What I've learned, and this is going to be a recommendation, of course, but what I would recommend people, what I would suggest to people to do, is instead of beating themselves up when they are really frustrated with the fact that they're not reaching their goals as fast as they wanted to, or they're not seeing results right away in their day-to-day life, like I just said, is instead of beating ourselves up when we're making these mistakes, let's say, or we're falling back into the same habits, we're veering off the narrow path of discipline and sinking back into our old self-destructive ways. Instead, take those mistakes and use them as learning lessons. So what I would suggest both to myself and to other people is, when you notice yourself, when you start to have a conscious awareness and you start really paying attention to the mistakes you're making, I'd also say make a conscious awareness, try to pay attention to why you're doing this. And if you're not sure why, start having a conversation with yourself. Start asking yourself, what is it that's keeping me from reaching my goals? There are a lot of different reasons as to why it could be happening. Maybe it's a bad way of thinking. It's you're slipping back into this habit of thinking thoughts that really aren't helpful for yourself. You're being too hard on yourself, and you're thinking too critically, and falling back into this destructive pattern of bad thoughts and talking to yourself in a way that isn't respectful to yourself, because that's what you should be doing, is you should be respecting yourself. There could be a plethora of reasons as to why you're not hitting your goals, but I think the best thing to do is to start having open and honest conversations with yourself. Whether that's sitting in your room at night before you go to bed and reflecting back on the day, and you can add into your nightly routine some time. Maybe you set 10 minutes for yourself, we'll say, an arbitrary amount of time. Let's say 10 minutes to yourself where you can think, I'm not hitting my goals, or it's taking me a very long time. I'm not seeing a lot of progress. Why do I think that's happening? Is it something I'm doing? Is it something in my environment? Is it have to do with the people that I'm choosing to surround myself with? Maybe I need to remove myself from some destructive, toxic relationships. Maybe I need to have a change of environment. Maybe it's something as simple as just cleaning your room. That can really help get you on track. Maybe it's something bigger. Maybe you need to have a shift in your environment. And that also could just be something as simple as making a dedicated workspace for yourself. So you're not doing everything for your life in one room. Sometimes, for example, what I find for myself is that I have a hard time being productive in my room because there are a bunch of distractions, and it's my comfort zone. It's where I'm comfortable. It's where I sleep and get dressed and I'm not very motivated, therefore, to get a lot of work done. So it could be more simple things like that. It could be you need to change your environment. You need to change your relationships. There's a lot of reasons why. But what I think is great is you start to have an open, honest conversation with yourself about why you think things aren't going the way you want to. But sometimes even that's not enough, and sometimes you need to take it a step further. I certainly have had to in the past. Sometimes we're not super honest with ourselves. You can think of it in the same way as when you take, and I think we've all done this before, you take those personality or career aptitude tests online, and there are a lot of good tests, and those tests work great when you're being honest with yourself. But can you think of anyone who can be 100% totally honest and candid with themselves, especially with their flaws? I can't do it. And so those tests are great, but not for humans. You know what I mean? Those tests aren't super great for humans because everyone has their flaws, and most people aren't great at admitting it because it's a painful thing to do. No one likes to admit that there are some things they're doing wrong, or some faulty ways of thinking, or that they have some flaws. I certainly don't like to do that. It makes me feel rather uncomfortable. So sometimes having that conversation with yourself can be pretty difficult. So what I would suggest as an alternative option is to have that conversation with someone that you trust, a safe person. And the great thing with that is when you're talking to someone else, I believe, for example, that our way to think is by talking, by having a conversation with someone. And the reason why I think that is because when you're having a conversation with someone about something deep and serious, like with this topic, about, why you think that you're not hitting your goals. When you're having this kind of conversation with someone that you trust and that you feel is a safe person, you start to listen to what you're saying. That person's going to listen to what you're saying, of course, and can tell you, if they know a lot about you, which hopefully they do, they can tell you, I don't think that's exactly true. I don't really think you mean that. Maybe you want to say something else. But what's great is that you'll also be listening to what you're saying. You'll be listening and paying attention to what you're saying, because now you're saying these things to another person, and hopefully, chances are you wouldn't want to lie to them. So I think that's great. I think it's great, like I said, to have an open and honest conversation with yourself. I do that a lot to check in with myself. But it's also great, if that's not working out so well for you, to have an open and honest conversation with someone else, a trusted, safe person, and they can help you. And what I think is even more helpful of that is you can help yourself. You can listen to what you're saying and pay attention to what you're saying. The most important thing is to shift away from kicking ourselves and being so hard on ourselves, and to move into a different thought pattern. To move into one like, I'm going to learn from this mistake, and I'm going to do better in the future for myself. Not, you can't do this, you should give up on your goals, and you're stupid for even thinking that you could hit this goal in the first place. Just give up and go back to what you were doing before. Not that, because I've done that before, and that doesn't help at all. What you should do instead is the opposite. Tell yourself, I'm going to learn from these mistakes. I know I have flaws. I'm going to choose instead to learn from these mistakes and do better moving forward, so I can help myself. And I think that's a much healthier conversation to have with yourself than the one that we all usually have with ourselves when we're not hitting our goals. Hope it helps, guys. Catch you in the next video.